Hey guys, a quick one on stenciling this week with royal icing. Here I've got my base cake, which is a 7-inch round. It's been covered in sugar paste and left to firm up. How long it takes to firm up will depend on your paste, your climate and what you've used underneath. You just want to wait until it's no longer soft enough to leave a fingerprint with a gentle touch. I personally like to leave mine overnight if I can. Here I have my stencil. This exact one is available in my shop, which I'll leave linked below, and it comes in 2 sizes. You can use it either which way around you like, back to front or upside down. This stencil is almost 6 inches, but the actual pattern part being just below 5 inch. Here you can see the height of my cake is just over 5.5 inches, so this will fit fine. There is also a smaller stencil available which isn't as deep. As you can see, when you wrap it around, there's not many ways to keep it in place. Pins or needles rarely go through the plastic, so we need to secure it with something less evasive. Grab yourself a sheet of A4 paper and some masking tape. Cut a strip of paper that is slightly smaller in width than your stencil, and place the stencil on top, making sure all the pattern is visible. Stick it to the paper with masking tape, making sure not to cover any of the design. Now wrap your stencil around the cake. The paper acts like an extension around the back and it's flat enough and wide enough not to mark your cake. Once you get all the way around, fold the paper so it meets the stencil, but it doesn't cover any design, and stick it securely with masking tape. Now it's held in place and ready to go. I am not a piping expert and I very rarely use royal icing, usually just for gluing something quite stubborn, so I find this stuff super handy to have. It's ready to use royal icing by Renshaw in a tub. Can't get much easier than that. You can of course just make your own preferred recipe. I'm just lazy and royal isn't my thing. This is just straight out of the tub and I've got some in a bowl with a knife and I'm just spreading it on, making sure to cover each cutout on the stencil. Just add it all over. Don't wander off to make a phone call. You don't want it to start setting. Get it on and then remove all the excess with a scraper before it air dries too much. We are removing the large ridges of icing so there aren't thick and thin bits on the final design. As soon as that's done, remove your tape from one side of the paper. Due to the nature of the stencil material, it practically removes itself. Then all you have to do is pull off the last bit and voila, a stenciled pretty floral effect. It looks nice white on white and even better in grey. Now we have the back to do, but you'll want to let the front fully set, so we'll move on to the 5 inch. Same process here, but with a smaller piece of paper needed, as the gap will be smaller on the 5 inch. Just tape it up and remove any bits where the design is hidden. Whack it on, scrape it off, and let the stencil do the hard work. Sometimes you may get a few rough edges, that's okay, we can't all be perfect all the time. Just grab yourself a damp paintbrush and smooth them out. The water just melts it further to get rid of those peaks. Now back to the larger tier. It's had most of the day to set and we can touch it without it squishing. We just want to line up the stencil to continue the pattern. Make sure your stencil is clean and dry and ultimately facing the right way around. Place your stencil where the pattern continues and wrap the whole thing around, securing it with tape. This is why you needed to let the first section fully set. Now look through the stencil. I can see here there is already a pattern underneath this bit, so I'm going to ignore it when adding my icing. I don't want to double it up. Here you can see where I'm starting, and the design section to the left already has stenciling underneath it. Remove the stencil and touch it up where it needs it. The gap on the 5" is much smaller to fill. There's lots of stenciling already underneath, so you can just mask it off with tape, covering any parts you don't want. All this side we are going to ignore, we just want this empty section. And that's it, all done. You just want to let it all set. Here it is, dry and fully decorated. Hope you find this useful. As I said, these stencils and a few other designs are available in my shop, along with this little cherry pin which helps support this channel and its tutorials. It always pays to check the description box. Thanks guys, see you next week.